All right. All right, everybody. I was starting to worry. We were getting ready to go, and we had no senators here, so but that has been alleviated now. So we will go ahead and call this meeting of the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee to order. I'm going to ask Chairman Jaspers to open us up in a word of prayer.
Let's all bow our heads together, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for another fabulous day and opportunity to do great things. Lord, let us have open ears and open hearts, listen, and be brave enough to do the right thing when we feel it's that way. We hope we work in your name every day. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right. First bill, we'll start at the bottom of the agenda. Senate Bill 147, Senator Rhett. And we've had all three of these bills we've already had a hearing on before and a lot of testimony. So if you just want to hit the high points, Senator, and then we'll move on from there.
Basically, a couple years ago, we passed, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all of y'all. We passed a bill where people in state prisons, when they finish their term, to try and help them to get back to speed in society, we would, if they wanted it, we would provide free driver's license or state identification cards, and that passed. And so the only thing we're doing here today is just broaden it a little more, whereas if they went to, we put together a little portfolio, whereas if they went to school and got welding or a GED or any type of skill or training, we put together a little portfolio along with the driver's license, state identification card, and in some cases, social security card and a birth certificate. And that's pretty much all we're doing. I came up with this bill because years ago, before I came to the Senate, I worked down the street at a Gateway, which is a homeless shelter, City of Refuge, which is a women's shelter, and Jefferson Place, helping people in recidivism, trying to make that paradigm shift. I was also fortunate to get a number of them hired here at the state capitol. And if you'd have told us 10 years ago that we would all be working at the state capitol, we wouldn't have believed you. But that's basically just it. And if are there any questions,
All right. Any members of the committee have any questions for Senator Rhett? Huh? Chairman Werkheiser, did you have anything that you wanted to add? You good? Okay. All right. Representative Panich?
Motion to pass.
Okay. We have a motion to pass. Is there a second? Second. All right. We have a motion and a second. And I got some lights lighting up for discussion. Chairman Petrie.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the appropriate time. I was trying to get it drafted by legislative council, but wasn't able to get that done in time. But I do have. It's pretty simple.
Okay. Well, we've had a motion.
You want to
and
take further? Okay. If you want.
We've had a motion in a second, so I think now would be the appropriate time if you wanted to make a motion to amend.
It would, sir. Okay. So here's what I would explain, and I've talked to the senator about. So it is the Immigration Reform Act of 1986. Of course, makes it a federal crime for the unlawful hiring of illegal aliens. I hope everyone here is aware of that. And so as we pass this very good measure to help people get back into the workforce when they leave prison, we need to make sure that we're not encouraging people to break the law and hire those illegally in this country. So here's what my amendment would be. Bear with me. If nothing's changed, this is the same sub we had before, Mr. Chairman, SB 147/FA.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. Then on line 15.
Okay.
Where you see shall upon request from an eligible person, we would remove the comma and add the language, who is not an illegal alien, as defined in Code Section 16-11-201 comma.
Okay, so after eligible person, it was read, who is not an illegal alien as defined in code section in OCGA
16-11-201.
1611-201.
And then you will continue with where the senator's language was on line 16, provide such person with. So we're simply excluding those that are illegally classified by statute in Georgia and federal government as illegal aliens who are in these prisons.
Okay. And I checked with legislative counsel real quick. Ben, did you get that? Does that seem kosher to you?
Best I can tell right now, yes.
All right. All right. Chairman Jaspers.
I just want to, Chairman Petrie, in 1611-201, what does that say in that little code section? I'm just not aware.
So it basically defines what an illegal alien is, and I don't have that in front of me. I tried to get this, again, we kind of rushed here at the last minute.
Sure.
But it basically just describes
Okay.
But you have the legislative counsel if we need him to speak more fully to that.
1611-201 defines illegal alien as a person who is verified by the federal government to be present in the United States in violation of federal immigration law.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I had some concern about that because basically we're just dealing with state prisons where people are incarcerated for a long period of time, unlike where we don't have in this bill the county jails, where usually most of the people, anybody who is an illegal alien, would be filtered out at the county level before they go to prison for long term. And that's one of the reasons why when I went through this with Sheriff Norris, we wanted to make sure that the county jails weren't involved. And that's pretty much where you would find most illegal aliens. By the time they go to court and go to prison, they'll be filtered out. And so I just have questions about adding that.
Yeah, and I think Chairman Petrie can respond
I'm
to
going
that.
to ask
We
Mr.
discussed
Chairman
that.
if I could pass these down for distribution.
Okay.
So first of all, that's simply not accurate. And so what I'm handing out is in the last meeting, and I don't see the young man here, but one of the groups that was protesting Senator Tillery's bill lied to this community, to this committee, boldly, and suggested that my data on the 1,700 criminal aliens that are currently today in the Georgia State Correctional System, he suggested that was off by 1,600, which would mean he thinks there's 100 people in our state prisons. Here you will see before you information I got last week that explains quite clearly we have 1,717 criminal aliens in Georgia's correctional system today. So to the senator's comment, we simply need to exclude preparing people for employment who are illegal to employ by federal law. It's pretty simple. Federal law by the way, it's a crime for the individual to be employed. It's a crime for an employer to hire them. And by the way, if anybody's interested, Immigration Reform Act of 1986, maximum jail time 6 months and $3,000 fine per person for hiring someone unlawfully in the country. For I-9 violations, fines range from $110 to $111. $1,100 per employee. So obviously, the state should not be sending the message we should be employing people that is illegal to employ. I think it's pretty simple, Chairman.
Yep, thank you.
What was your wording again you wanted to put in, and which line?
It's line 16, following eligible person, would insert who is not an illegal alien as defined in OCGA 16-11-201, comma, provide such person. So it would just insert that in between person and provide. So, all right, so that is made in the form of a motion. Is there a second on the motion? There's a second on the motion. Any further discussion on Chairman Petrie's motion? And that would be Representative Neal.
Yes, thank you to the chair. Question. I just want a question to the author. Are you amenable to that?
Yeah, I was just trying to find that sounds good, but I was wondering if we should put it in the when you look at line 48 where it says the following categories of inmates are not required to complete or practice job interview, would it go in that section? Or legislative council, should it be where it's at? Where he wants to put it in 15.
Well, I think that in 48, that's just categorizing the ones who are not required to complete resumes or practice job interviews. It doesn't exclude them from the rest of those items. So I think putting it in at the beginning, I think that's the Chairman Petrie's preferred method.
Recommended this, I just didn't want to leave it on the draft. This was the recommendation
Yes, sir.
by legislative council. Yes, sir.
That's fine.
All right, 17, that is Representative Cummings.
That's me.
Oh,
I just have a question on the amendment for clarification.
sorry.
It said illegal immigrants or DACA students included in the illegal immigrant, because they're technically illegal, but they have that DACA questionable constitutional status anyway.
Under 1611-201, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
The definition literally says in paragraph A2, illegal alien means a person who is verified by the federal government to be present in the United States in violation of federal immigration law.
Okay.
So DACA students are not in violation of federal immigration law now because they've been excluded from that, if that's my
all I was trying to
understanding.
clarify.
That would be my interpretation, and I am not a lawyer, so you can take that interpretation for what it's worth, which ain't a whole lot. All right, we had a motion and a second on the amendment. See no further discussion on the amendment. All those in favor of the Petrie amendment, say aye. Any opposed, say no. Okay, motion to amend carries. Any further discussion on the full bill as amended? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed say no. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you, ladies and
Thank
gentlemen.
you.
I appreciate your help. Sir,
Yes, sir.
carry the bill.
Chairman Werkheiser?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, got it.
Thank you. We're having cake and punch down in the Senate lounge. You're all invited to come on out.
That's a very irresistible offer. Thank you very much. Okay, we're gonna do. All right, I know that both of y'all are here, and I think Senator Anavatardi had to get to another committee meeting. Senator Robertson, do you have to get somewhere? Do y'all want to flip a coin or?
We both did, Mr. Chair, but you determine who's more important.
Well, isn't that fun?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I have no problem waiting.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, what I was going to do is I say we're just going to go in the order of the agenda then. For that case, that would be Senator Anavatardi.
I mean, I like how you.
That was really neat how you did that, wasn't it?
It was. We're going to do Randy's at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh.
I'll be here.
I will not be here for that. So, okay. And we've already heard this once. So if you just want to hit a couple of high points, and hopefully there won't be many questions, and we'll continue on. So your floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, so basically, this bill is for fallen law enforcement, public safety individuals who passed away during the pandemic, who may have been denied claims, indemnification claims during that time. This money's already been approved. Y'all voted on in the amended budget. Basically, be a window of about 30 days once the bill goes into effect in July for applications, and then after that, the window closes, and that's the end of it.
Okay. All right. Any questions for the senator? All right. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Okay. Move do pass. All right. We have a motion do pass. Is there a second? Any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed say no. All right. It carries. Thank you. And who's going to be carrying this for you?
Representative Gullett.
Representative Gullett. All right, very good. Thank you, sir. All right, and as we typically like to do in here, we've saved the best for last. Senator Robertson, if you would come on up. Well, sir, as long as I'm chairing this committee, I don't know that we're going to have one of those 6 o'clock a.m. meetings.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, I want to
Yes,
tell
sir.
you, Chairman Powell was there at 6 o'clock, and now I was there at 4:30, but I did buy chicken biscuits and coffee for everybody. So I tried to make it as painless as possible because I know what morning watch is.
Yes, sir.
So it was just the end of the shift. It wasn't the beginning of it.
Understood. All right, floor is yours, sir.
Mr. Chairman, SB 99, first of all, I want to thank Chairman Reeves for all the work he did on it. And there were a few questions on this last time. The one question I think that I want to clear up is federal law prohibits federal law enforcement officers from moonlighting, from having part-time jobs and things like that. And I know that was a legitimate concern of the representative as we were going through the initial presentation of the legislation. But I'll be happy to stand for any questions related to the bill as it is now.
Okay, and we've got LC 394740S. Is that what
Yes,
you
sir,
have?
that's the one I'm looking at now.
Okay. And is this the same one that we had last time we were here?
No, sir, it has been worked on by the committee.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. That's what
And,
I just wanted to. That's what I wanted to hit on.
And
so.
made better. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Cleared up some of the issues and some of the confusion on the initial legislation.
Okay. I got a couple of lights blinking here. I'm going to let Representative Reeves explain some of those real quick because he helped work on this, so maybe that'll answer your questions. So, Representative Reeves.
Thank you, Chairman Crow and members of the committee. The substitute that is in front of you is actually the House version that this committee passed out. When the Senate approved the bill, Senate Bill 99, I went and talked to Senator Robertson. I showed him the House version at that point. He said, that's good, let's work off of the House version. We had made several more revisions based on input from what the Senate had, so the House version that is before you and the substitute is more detailed. It had more input from Georgia sheriffs who support the substitute, and it is a more detailed version of the bill than the Senate version. This was in front of you a few weeks back. I think there may be a friendly amendment coming that clarifies that the federal officers would only act in response to a request from a Georgia state or local law enforcement officer or under an emergency circumstance that endangers human life. I think those were two things that may be coming from the committee.
Yeah, this looks exactly like the one we had last time, though.
That's right.
The same one we had last time we were in here, which is not the same one we passed out of yours.
No, it is. This substitute is the House version that passed out of this committee and which we put on hold once the Senate passed theirs because Senator Robertson said.
Do you have a copy of this one? Would you like to look at a copy of this one to see? I just want to make sure because
I have LC 394740S.
That's what we've got. And this is the exact same one that we heard last time that now you're saying there's been changes made to.
No. This version in front of you is a substitute that is the House version from a few weeks ago. It is not the Senate version.
Mr. Chair, this was not, the version I presented was not an S. It was not a substitute. It was the original SB 99.
I think what Senator Robertson meant is he came in to present the Senate version initially. We got the House version there and he adopted it. That's what's in front of you today.
And that is what I had in the packets last week.
All right, Representative Neal.
The difference between the two is going to be the addition of section, well, now on the current substitute, section D was not in the Senate version. And then the recommended amendments that are coming was also not in the Senate version. The House version, this is the House version, but the Senate version he had did not have Section D.
That is correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, pretty sure the one I had last week at our meeting had Section D in it.
Then
Because my policy analyst is telling me that this is the same one we had last week.
It
Is
is.
that correct?
It
That's
is.
the exact same one, and D
It
was
is.
in there.
It is.
Okay.
And I believe the committee members may have an amendment to tighten up the concern from the last meeting
Okay.
that we've arrived
So
at.
we're operating on the same bill.
Same bill.
There's going to be an amendment.
Correct.
Okay.
And
I'm excited
the-
to hear that.
The amendment was some committee members were concerned that a federal officer may take the initiative. We got on the phone with federal attorneys. They said they are required to respond only to state or local law enforcement, or if there's immediate threat of bodily harm. So today, in talking through that with committee members, I think you may have somebody make a motion to add that amendment, which I understand from the senator would be friendly.
And
All
yeah,
right.
because the feds do not initiate.
Correct.
Yes, sir. They respond.
Chairman Sains, did you push your button?
Yeah, my question, and I know it was a discussion by the author, and I think by my colleague, there is, and I think it's worth stating for the committee, because I think y'all do have an opinion on this. Is there not a way to not add them to the definition of law enforcement? I know that's distinct from peace officer, but I do know there's several times in code and when we're discussing a bill in judiciary and on civil, my concern is for the future is there not a more scoped down approach to not add them to the definition of a state law enforcement officer?
I think to accomplish what we're trying to do, I think this is probably the best way since the change to the citizen's arrest law in the past. And you know, something was brought up last time, and I'd like to touch on it. Somebody brought up a federal, I think it was park ranger or something like that. And we need to understand, and we have similar to that in the Georgia Department of Corrections, and I know we have subject matter experts in the Georgia Department of Corrections on the committee, is that the park rangers we talk about, these are legitimate certified law enforcement officers. They carry all the powers that an FBI agent carries. Their mission is just different. So I just wanted to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples. Yes,
Sure,
sir.
not, there are, all the rangers have the same uniform, but some carry guns, and those are two very
Yes, sir.
different classes.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. I think your colleague in the House has a follow-up. I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, if I may add to that, we're down to Georgia and Nebraska being the only states without a jurisdictional provision about this, and PBA, Fraternal Order of Police, sheriffs, police chiefs, as well as the feds, have looked all over the country. This bill is less than half the length that it was last year. We've gotten it down to the minimal necessary to give law enforcement jurisdiction during an emergency or during a task force like a drug. You know, the park in Macon, they've got the Ocmulgee Indian Mounds. If the state officials say there's drug dealing going on out there, this would allow them to request the feds to have a joint task force operation to get the drug dealers out of a park. That's the kind of situation we're dealing with.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great example.
All right. We have Mr. LaRusso signed up. Did you want to add anything from last time, or?
Yes, sir. Just very briefly, there was a question that came up in the committee about the knowledge that officers, the laterals that are mentioned in subsection D, so these are officers that come to the state, they want to get certified, and they're waiting to get the certification training that Post has. And then also with the federal officers, how would they know what criminal laws were in Georgia? So I worked with the Post director, the executive director, Chris Harvey, and they are prepared to create a PowerPoint or a class that would be available for federal law enforcement officers who are stationed in Georgia, and then also be provided to those laterals before they can get through the formal class. After the formal class, they're certified by Post, so it wouldn't carry. But in that interim gap, they would have some knowledge before we're asking them to have that arrest authority.
Okay. All right. Very good. And I think we cleared up during all that, I think we cleared up my confusion on the LCs. This was a committee sub, but it was the one you presented last week. You first presented this committee sub, so it's the same one we had last week, but it's different than the one that passed the Senate. So that was where the confusion lies. So, all right, any further comment or questions from members of the committee? All right, seeing none, well, almost didn't see any. Representative Neal?
Yes, thank you to the chair. I just want to say thank you to everybody in this process for the amount of work. I think I've talked to more federal entities this last 7 days than I have in a long time. But I did want to say thank you for that. Thank you for getting the training together and all these other pieces we've been trying to work out. So
Thank you for your input.
All right, thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Motion to pass.
All right, we have a motion to pass and a second. Are there any further discussion or amendments? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
line 36,
Okay.
changing the period after United States Code to a semicolon. And it reads as the following. At the request of a Georgia state or local law enforcement officer and only in the incidents of imminent death or bodily harm. Period.
Okay, at the request of a Georgia state or local law enforcement officer and, give me that last part one more time.
Only in the incident of imminent death and bodily harm.
Imminent death and bodily harm or bodily harm?
Or bodily harm, but I think there's an or. I think this is supposed to be or.
Gotcha. Backing up, at the request of Georgia State or local law enforcement officer, or
Okay.
instead of and, or only in the incidents of imminent death or bodily harm. So reading it again, 36 at the end of U.S. Code, semicolon, at the request of a Georgia state or local law enforcement officer, or in the incident of imminent death or bodily harm.
Or to prevent imminent death or harm.
Legislative Council, where are we right now?
Well, legislative council's over there.
Sorry. We're trying to reduce words at this point, because there's a lot of words.
Yeah, and I think what she was saying, so I think what you're trying to say is at the request of a Georgia state or local law enforcement officer or to prevent an incident of serious bodily harm or death.
I like that. Or to prevent, I like that.
That's fine.
That's what you're wanting to limit it.
To prevent imminent death or bodily harm.
I'm not sure the incident.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
The incident was not.
Yeah.
Scratching our words. I'm good.
No
with that.
incidents, just to prevent that.
Okay, reading it clean now. 36 at the end of the United States Code, semicolon, at the request of a Georgia state or local law enforcement officer, or to prevent imminent death or bodily harm.
Okay. All right, that's your motion.
That's the motion.
Is there a second on the motion? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that, Representative Cummings?
Yes, I just need some clarification on that. I don't want anything in this bill to prohibit or hinder federal law enforcement officers when they're performing their duties. And I guess my question is, this says that they're empowered to arrest a person for criminal violations of the United States Code, which they already have pursuant to federal law. So now, when they're out in the community performing their official federal duties as federal law enforcement officers, are they going to have to get permission to continue? And that's becoming my concern. The feds already work with local law enforcement under RICO statutes. They've done it forever. That's how you have joint gang facing local crimes and federal crimes. It's pretty routine. And I'm just concerned that in addition to the United States Code, when they're performing their duties, now they got to get additional permission too. That's why I just want clarification on it.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's covered under the supremacy clause, and I'm sure the attorneys will correct me if I'm wrong, but nothing we can do can prohibit them from carrying out their duties as a federal law enforcement officer, as a federal officer enforcing federal law.
Yeah, I think her concern is that now they're already working with them as a task force or something like that, and are they going to have to go back? Is that your question? Are they going to have to go back and get permission again, or have that request made now, an official request?
The supremacy clause covers that now because they are on there for the purpose of enforcing federal law. Yes, sir.
Right, and but their arrest power is pursuant to the United States Code for violation of the United States Code, which is federal law already.
Yeah, nothing we can do is going to supersede that. So.
Right, so what are we trying to do here? And with the additional language, that's what I'm just trying to figure out.
So all we're doing here is outline the fact because the law that removed this clause, I'm going blank right now.
Citizen's arrest.
Citizen's arrest. Mm-hmm. All we're doing is trying to find a replacement for that. So adding this language just gets us closer to what that original intent was. And under the original, under that original law, either way you had to be requested by the local agency in order to work in this capacity. So all we're doing is trying to get it to mimic what was removed unintentionally some years ago. That's all we're doing. That's all this language is doing.
All right, Chairman Sainz.
Thank you. I have a question. We are using in that amendment, which I appreciate the intention, but we're using the term law enforcement officer, which we're defining in this section. So does that not present an issue? We're using law enforcement officer in the definition of law enforcement officer.
Well, so if I can clarify, and council can jump in as well. So there's a difference between law enforcement officer versus someone that is certified as a peace officer. So instead of saying law enforcement officer, we can say peace officer, because that does align with the definitions at least.
Or post-certified.
Or post-certified. What does legislative council recommend? Is it peace officer or post-certified?
Give me 1 second to verify, but I believe peace officer is defined
Post-certified.
in that same code section as any person who by virtue of his office or public employment is vested by law with the duty to maintain public order, to make arrests of offenses. So I think to avoid the circularity, replacing law enforcement officer with peace officer there would be beneficial.
Let's do that, and at the appropriate time, I'll make that edit.
Okay. So here's my concern with that, and this, and just while we're having the discussion, we'll go back and fix your amendment in a minute. But yeah.
Sorry, apologies for.
No, you're fine.
Just while we were speaking,
Uh-huh.
while I was had a chance, potentially adding the language while serving at the request makes that a little bit more clear when this federal law enforcement officer is considered a law enforcement officer.
Okay.
My concern with that, all right, I got a concern with that. I got a concern with actually the whole amendment, and here's why. Because it's if they're to prevent bodily harm or death. But what if they come upon another act or another crime that they can intervene in that doesn't necessarily is not going to be result in death or bodily harm?
For me, I thought the intent of the bill was to allow for support, like in line 18, in response to a declaration, a state of emergency or disaster. So I thought that's what we were contemplating. So I guess I have.
Well, I think the intent also was if they are out in the community, that they can also intervene and render aid if there is if there's a robbery going on. Now, there could be a robbery, and that I guess you could stretch it, and I would defer to some attorneys here to whether or not if somebody's being robbed, that meets this definition of imminent death or bodily harm. We took out imminent to prevent death or bodily harm. I guess you could construe that could result in that. I'm just thinking if there is a crime that I would want a friend of mine that works with ATF now, if he's out going to the grocery store and runs upon a crime, him to intervene in that wouldn't meet this definition. And to Ben's point, if you put while serving at the request, that would preclude them from doing that, because they wouldn't be serving at the request. They would be going to the grocery store and see a crime happening they could intervene in.
I think it's an or. That's why we made it or. They can serve while serving at the request of local or another agency, or they don't need their request because they came upon a crime so serious that they have to act immediately.
Okay.
And for me, imminent death or bodily harm is that standard. The idea is that they're not going to start an investigation because they saw kids smoking pot in a car and that they don't like those kids.
Yeah.
So,
which you're not going to do anyway. But
well,
anyway.
You say that.
I do say that.
People charged with crazy things.
By a federal law enforcement officer on a state.
Well, no,
lead charge?
because they haven't had the ability to do that. But we don't want to give them the ability to do that.
Okay.
I
Understood.
think in that case, they would basically be a citizen, and they would call and report that there's some kid smoking weed in a car. Right.
Yeah, the local cops, not them.
Yes, ma'am.
So that was my intention in
All right.
putting that imminent.
We're going to wrap this up real quick. So you keep hitting your button and cutting it off. Do you? Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second on an amendment, but now you want to amend
Based on his
your
recommendation.
motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Going back 36.
So
United States Code.
Chairman Saines, do you want to make a motion to amend her amendment?
I think the young lady has a well understanding of her modification. I just made a comment, and I think she's amending it based on that comment.
All right. Let's restate your motion then.
Okay. 36. U.S. Code, period, replace a semicolon. At the request of a Georgia state or local peace officer.
That's reasonable.
Or to prevent imminent death or bodily harm.
Okay. Now, do you want to include legislative counsel's suggestion that you put while serving at the request of a Georgia state or local peace officer?
I'll add that, yes. Going again, 36. U.S. Code, replacing period with semicolon. While serving at the request of a Georgia state or local peace officer, or to prevent imminent death or bodily harm.
That's reasonable.
All right. So the amendment now reads, while serving at the request of a Georgia state or local peace officer, or to prevent imminent death or bodily harm.
Yep.
So that's what Abby has wrote down. Ben, is that what you've got?
That is what I have. If there's any room for clarification here, you could also potentially add when acting to prevent imminent death or bodily harm, but I think it works either way.
Okay, he thinks it works either way.
All right.
Chairman Jaspers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to, I've seen Representative Reeves stand up a number of times, wave his hand. Would you like to comment on this?
Thank you.
Chairman Jasper St. Crow, committee members, the two things the feds asked for is give us jurisdiction when there's disaster management where we're working together, or when y'all call us into a joint task force. The law enforcement locally, I think they want to have help if there's imminent death or bodily injury. That was a Georgia thing, but I'd say let's be done, and if there are problems in the future that come up, let's address them when they get there. But we've covered what they asked for through that amendment.
Very good. Thank you for that input. And as Abby and I were talking up here, we've commented several times that this committee this year has felt more like judiciary non-civil than public safety. And I've identified that every time we've had that happen, you've been in the room. So I don't want to, just making us, just stating the fact. So, Chairman Sains.
Well, in that case, motion to expel representative. I don't, again, a comment, and I support the motion, but I think there's a policy distinction that we're making by saying a Georgia peace officer versus an agency. So we're trying to give a roadside state peace officer the ability to ask for help for if some reason a local law enforcement agent is, or a federal law enforcement agent is around, versus saying a state or local law enforcement agency, which would be a more formal process, versus any peace officer can give this power to any federal law enforcement officer. I just don't know that if this goes to a court, what's constituted, a Kingsland police officer asking a Kings Bay cop to help or not. Does that need to be a formal process from
If I can give a quick example.
Sure.
My second week in the Georgia State Senate, I was driving in one morning and came across a gentleman who was having a mental health crisis in the middle of 10th Street. My wife was in the vehicle with me. I exited the vehicle. She knew what to do. She called 911. Told him. I tried to communicate with the individual as he sat in the road, asking for everything. This was a very normal-looking human being, not looking to be in distress or anything. When the Atlanta Police Department got there, they went hands-on with this individual and a fight started. I articulated to the officer in the fight I said, I'm a post-certified law enforcement officer trained in defensive tactics. Would you like for me to assist you? The APD officer said, yes, sir, please. And so then I stepped in and went hands-on with the APD officer to do that. And basically, that's the same thing. We're asking these for a local or state or local peace officer to give them that authority to allow that person that may step up and say, I'm a federal whatever, would you like for me to help you? And give them the opportunity to invite that officer's assistance while at the same time protecting that officer as he or she assists that state or local peace officer in making an arrest or something else from any liability or other things that may come with that.
And what I'm hearing from that comment is the policy intent is as it was amended, by not putting it a step up for the agency, but allowing that that possible life or death request from that officer.
Yep.
So I'm.
And I don't think it precludes anybody from this being for an agency.
Okay. Well, and Section B talks about an agency for disaster, declaration of state of emergency or disaster issued by the governor. So you've got the agency part carried out up there wherever an agency needed to request assistance. All right, so we have your motion. We think we have your motion. We know what we wanted to say. There was a second on it. Does that second still stand? Okay, we still have a second. Is there any more discussion on this amendment? No, there's not. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Any opposed, say no. All right, amendment carries. Any further discussion on the bill as amended? Seeing none, all in favor of the original bill as amended, say aye. Any opposed, say no. All right, it carries as amended. And who is going to be carrying this for you? Would it be Representative Reeves?
Well, since he's been expelled, Mr. Chair, I would hope so. I would hope so.
All right, very good, sir. All right, that is everything on the agenda. We will be adjourned. Thank y'all.
Hey, that first bill was